Hello, everyone. Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. It's time to look at the astrology for the sign of Capricorn for the year 2024. Now, this is a relatively brief evaluation of the energy of Capricorn, or the energy that Capricorn it has to work with this year, right? And so this is for the whole year. And before I get to the astrology, I have selected a oracle card from my Soulflower Plant Spirit Oracle by Lisa Estabrook, sorry, I do that all the time. Estabrook, E-S-T-A Brook. This is it's a great deck, and it's published by Finhorn. And I did select a card before the reading, and for Capricorn, I selected Lady Slipper, which is connection. These are the state flowers of Massachusetts, where I live. And when we walk through and they're wild. And when we walk through where we used to walk our dogs in the dog park, you would find these. It was always like a little present to find, because they are kind of rare. And, the more they build up areas, the less we see the lady slippers, because they're sensitive to environmental changes. Okay, it says lady slipper. When you are feeling weary, exhausted, and disconnected from your earthly pursuits, Lady Slipper can help to restore your soul's connection to your physical body. She will help infuse your daily life with guidance and intuition directly from the divine source, so that you can fully enjoy and participate in life, inhabit and explore your sensual body, and walk the path your soul intends. Connection. So this is kind of connecting heaven to earth, really. That is your card for the year. Stay connected. Okay, let's take a look at the astrology. All right, so we're looking at the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign, and your mantra is I utilize. Your ruling planet is, of course, Saturn, Sirius Saturn. So let's take a look at the energy of this year for you. We'll start with Saturn because it's your ruling planet. Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn moved into Pisces in 2023. I believe it was March of 2023. And it is in Pisces all year of 2024. It moves about 15 degrees this year, which is about average. Usually the Saturn moves about 15 degrees a year. So it takes 2.5 years. Well, actually, no, that's kind of fast, actually. But it usually takes about 2.5 years for Saturn to move through a sign. So Saturn has been sitting in your third house of the mind. So you've had a very serious mindset. Saturn tests things, so it can test a lot of the theories you might have. It can also create some restriction around your immediate environment. Maybe you're having some issues with neighbors, or you might even feel that you are sort of stuck close to home at this time. Saturn, as your ruling planet, is in the sign of Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac. So there is a lot of, with Saturn and Pisces, there is sort of a lot of letting go before Saturn gets to move into Aries and sort of start something new. But so a lot of what you're letting go of is thoughts, things that you thought you knew, perhaps. And also there can be some restrictions around siblings. So you can be having some issues with your siblings because of the Saturn in your third house. Neptune's also there. Neptune, of course, is there for 14 years. It's in a sign for 14 years. So it moves very slowly. And there's a spiritualization of the mind with Neptune in that place. But again, it moves slowly and it's pretty subtle. It happens over a long period of time. So you really don't always understand what's changed until Neptune has moved on. That's very true of almost all of the transpersonal planets, save for Uranus, because when Uranus hits you, you know something has changed. It just takes you a while. Like things change with Pluto and Neptune, and when you get like to the other side of you, like, oh, look at all those changes. But with Uranus, it's like change happens, and you're on the ground, and it takes the rest of the time to like gather up your things and try to figure it out. So it's not quite as subtle. And really, Pluto's not that subtle either. It just kind of depends on how it's hitting your chart. Speaking of Pluto, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. And don't you know it, Capricorns? Transforming your identity, transforming your body, transforming the structure of your consciousness. It's actually transforming the structure of all our consciousnesses. But for you, it's like right in your face, right? Well, this is the last year, 2024, where Pluto's going to be in Capricorn. So it's been a tough slog, but you've kind of gotten used to that. And now when it goes, you're going to be like, but wait a minute. What about the tough slog? Well, there'll be other areas of life that you have to navigate through that are kind of intense. But Pluto's going to move out of your first house. Yay. And that actually happens on the 20th of January. But Pluto is not quite done with Capricorn on the 3rd of September. It will move back into Capricorn, where it spends a little time in that last degree. In fact, this year, the whole year, whenever Pluto's in Capricorn, it's at that 30th degree of Capricorn. So it's sort of putting a period at the end of a very long and arduous sentence. But if you can look back to 2008 and what was going on then and come to see where you are now, you'll see the big changes and the big shifts that you personally have had to go through. Pluto going into Aquarius then goes into your second house of your resources. Now, Pluto in your house of resources can be can bring a lot of resources in. You can get very ambitious for resources when Pluto's in that second house, but it is there for 20 years. So you don't have to rush to get rich or anything like that, because it's going to take its time, and it's going to change the way you actually what you feel you need is essential in your life. It's probably also going to change your relationship to yourself, because the second house is in the nature of Taurus, which is the natural ruler of that second house. It's about self-worth and self-esteem. So there will be challenges to that, but on the other side, you will strengthen that for yourself. Now let's talk about, the other transpersonal planets. I said Uranus happens, and you know it happens, and then it takes the rest of the time for you to gather your stuff. Uranus is still in your fifth house of creative self-expression, children, romance, luck, gambling. I wouldn't advise it, but it could be lucky, but it could also be, you could be lucky, luck be a lady tonight, and then flat on your back because Uranus, you don't know. You don't actually know how Uranus is gonna work out in your chart. You just know that there's going to be surprises along the way, and those surprises are there to wake you up to things that you either forgot that you knew, in the case of memories and experiences and understandings from previous lifetimes. It could also be memories of the past around issues of children or your children or when you were a child. But either way, it's part of the process of individuation for you to become more authentically who you are ultimately. It's just kind of a bumpy ride to get there. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, has been in your fifth house. So romance has been kind of nice. There's been a lot of sensuality while Jupiter has been in Taurus. Jupiter went into Taurus in May of 2023 and exits May 25th of 2024. So about a year it's been there. So it's been a fun year. I mean, you deserve it. You have Uranus there, right? So why not have some fun with Jupiter? It's also kind of lucky. Jupiter is lucky. So if you do gamble, it's luckier, but not still, I wouldn't choose it as a career path. Let's put it that way. So when Jupiter moves into Gemini moves into your sixth house, and Jupiter in the sixth house. Jupiter expands things. So if there's any issues and medical issues, sometimes those things can come up in order for you to understand them and to work with them and to ultimately heal them. The sixth house isn't just the house of health, it's also the house of service, world service in some cases, for those of you who are so inclined to be a world server. And it's also the house of pets. So you might end up getting more pets with Jupiter there. And it's also the house of your work, your everyday work. And there may be more writing involved than there has been before with Jupiter there. Mercury has 3 retrograde stations this year. Usually it's 3 or 4. So we only have 3. All of the Mercury retrogrades, for the most part, are in fire. And they all fall in your water houses. So water and fire, there's a lot of spiritual initiation happening, new realization. Initiation just means you're starting something new. And when it's a spiritual initiation, it's like light breaks on marble head. You're like, oh, so they're going to be, I think, a lot of aha moments. The first Mercury retrograde occurs in the sign of Aries. That starts on April Fool's Day, because the universe has a sense of humor, and goes until the 20. Hold on, I have it written down here. Oops, I do have it written down, but I don't have the right page. Hold on 1 minute here. Let me find my page. Silly me. Oh, you know what? I think it's in a different book. Hold on 1 second. I gotta grab my other book. Oh, I got it. I got like this little lump I have to get over. Okay, wait. Okay. Funny, it's kind of the same book. It's just this is my 2024 information for the stars. All right, let's see. The 1st to the 25th. So, middle of tax season. So if you're an accountant, give yourself extra time. Things might have to be done more than once. It starts at 28 degrees of Aries and moves back to 17 degrees of Aries. The second Mercury retrograde occurs, starts when Mercury's at 4 degrees of Virgo. That's up here. We have a Virgo. This is the 9th house. Then it goes back into your 8th house when it goes back into Leo, and it goes all the way back to 22 of Leo. That goes from the 5th of August to the 28th of August. That's the mixed one. That's mixed with air and earth. I mean, fire and earth. So fire is the spiritual part and earth is the more physical part. So there may be some physical stuff that you need to deal with there, or some practical concerns. Doesn't have to be health, but there's practical concerns with Mercury retrograde in Virgo. And then the last one occurs on the 26th of November. It starts at 22 degrees of Sag, moves back to 7 degrees of Sag, and it turns direct on the 14th of December. So that Mercury retrograde, sort of a spirit, maybe even a spiritual crisis. We can have Mercury retrograde and fire be somewhat of a spiritual crisis. Occurs right around Thanksgiving and getting ready for Christmas holidays, or getting ready for the holidays. And so there can be some issues around family, and that Sagittarius one for you is in the 12th house. So it deals with karmic issues. It deals with your connection to source. I could be very psychic time and the like. Now, the nodes of the moon have moved. They moved in July of, was it July or August? It was July of 2023. They moved out of the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio into the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. Those signs are cardinal, as well as your sign is cardinal Earth. And so it's possible that for some of you, the nodes of the moon might be squaring some of your Capricorn planets. If that is the case, if you have Capricorn planets and the nodes of the moon are squaring those, know that the resolution node for you, for everybody with Capricorn, with the node squaring in that way, would be the South node. It's about renegotiating your relationships. So in order to move forward, in order to evolve, you're going to have to renegotiate some relationships, Capricorn. The North node in Aries in your fourth house. The fourth house is the house of the soul. And I often see, when I see a North node in the fourth house, I feel as though this is the time that you're coming out of the cold. So there's actually more focus on you personally and your family in some cases, but more focus on your soul and your soul's work, because you're kind of turning your back on the responsibilities of the outer world with the South node in Libra. Now, because the nodes are on the axis of security, issues of security come up. It's also considered the parental axis. And so, like mother, father, father, mother, it doesn't matter if the 10th house is dad or the 10th house is mom, or the fourth house is dad, or the fourth house is mom. It's really an axis. It all counts, right? And so there may be some issues with parents this year for you. You may be saying goodbye to somebody who is either a parent or like a parent. Now, that doesn't mean every person get nervous. But if your parent is elderly or there's something going on, the nodes are kind of like doorways to enter and exit. Okay. And that enter and exit can also be more people in the family coming in. So it could be babies as well, right? We have 4 eclipses. We have 2 lunar eclipses, 2 solar eclipses. And we have, as always, 2 eclipse seasons, one in the spring, in the northern hemisphere anyway. March 26th, we have, or March 25th, we have an eclipse, a new moon, hold on. It's the 25th, I think. Yes, the 25th of March, we have a full moon lunar eclipse at 7 degrees of Libra. So that lunar eclipse is happening up here in your 10th house. Lunar eclipses can be culmination points. It's also an opportunity for an illumination. And because it's on the South node, it could be illumination and release. Okay. Then we have the new moon in that series of eclipses, and that's a new moon at 20 degrees of Aries. That happens on the 8th of April. Now, that particular eclipse is a total solar eclipse. We can see it in the United States. It goes from, I think, Maine down to Texas, and it crosses the US this way. If this is Maine and this is Texas, it goes this way. Now, in 2017, we had the one in Oregon that went down to the Carolinas, and there is a point where that crosses. X marks the spot. Southern Illinois, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, that area, very highly charged area, a lot of political changes there and a lot of struggles trying to sort of root out some of the really, really deep racial issues, right, in that area. I mean, Memphis is where your fellow Capricorn, MLK, was assassinated. So there's history there, right? All right. But that is something that you might want to keep your eyes. Well, we're all going to be keeping our eyes on. That particular eclipse for you happens in your 4th house. So it's a soul connection here. Then in the fall, we have the South Node eclipse season, which is about releasing and letting go. The first thing we have is we have a full moon. Oh, I don't think I actually put it in here, did I? I missed it. It should be right here. It's a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. It should be right here near Saturn and Neptune. In fact, I believe that one is conjunct Neptune. It's at 26 degrees of Pisces. And then we have the new moon portion of that. And we have that new moon solar eclipse at 11 degrees of Libra. And that's on the South node. So before you can start a relationship, you need to end something. That's kind of how I would read that, for the most part. Mars, the planet of energy, starts the year at the later degrees of Sag and then moves all the way into the first couple of degrees of Leo. So this is where your energy is in your chart this year. And when you look at a chart, this is the horizon line. Below this is a more introspective time. Above it is a more external time. So there's a lot of time of introspection for you this year. Mars does go retrograde, as I said, at the end of the year. And that retrograde period sort of takes us into 2025. So when I get to my tarot scopes for December, that's when I'll really talk about that particular thing, because that's when it'll be most prominent. But it does, as it gets closer and closer to that place of where it goes retrograde, it does slow down. So it's going to be slow through. It's going to start to slow down through. Oops, sorry. I did that. It's going to start to slow down through Gemini and then Cancer, and then it's in Leo and it stops. And then it goes back into Cancer. So that Mars going back into Cancer, that happens the beginning of next year, but I will mention it to you because it is in your house of relationships. So there may be a rethinking or a review of how you expend your energy in relationships at that point. Venus, which had a long retrograde period last year, 2023, in Leo, has no retrograde. So Venus goes through the whole chart. That's why you don't see Venus here, because she whips around the chart, as does Mercury and as does the Sun. And so that is, Venus in each house, Venus in each sign. You get an opportunity. Nothing is, Venus just going from one thing to another to another. And that should be helpful, because it's tough when you have a Venus retrograde. And we also had a Mars retrograde, right? So it wasn't, it was a difficult year for sure, 2023. This year in 2024, but one of the reasons why 2023 was so difficult really is because we're in a 7-year, and the 7-year is really understanding your authentic self. Now we're in an 8-year in 2024, and so it's about as you sow, so shall you reap. And so if you've sown well, you're going to reap well. If you've sown poorly, or maybe you've sown terrible things, you can bet that the other side of that is going to come and whack you right in the head. So I know you guys, that's not an issue for you guys, but there are some people out there that need a comeuppance, and they're going to get their comeuppance in 2024. But it promises to be quite the year. All right, so that's the story, Morning Glories. If you enjoy this, please give me a like, a thumbs up. It helps. Share it if you would, if you know a Capricorn who could use this information. As I said, if you want something more specific to your sign, you can check out my tarot scopes, where I do 20 minutes of astrology, give or take, and then I do a tarot reading after that. I do that every month. You'll see that at the beginning of the month. If you want to know week to week, I also do things week to week. And if you want to know what the day is going to be like, meet me in my garden in the morning. I usually try to get it out by, say, 8 or 9 at the latest Eastern time. Sometimes late, and sometimes I get to do it the day before, so you get it like really early, but pretty much 7, 8, 9 is a good time when they come out. And I talk about the astrology of the day and anything that comes to mind that might be connected to that. So you might enjoy that. And although it is winter now, well, not quite winter as I sit here, but it is cold. There's not much to see in the garden, but once the spring comes, man, it's a whole different thing. So if you're checking me out and you're like, why are we walking around and all I see is sticks? Because somebody actually said that to me, which I understand, because all I look around, I see sticks and this and that. But there's usually a lot of really nice sky pictures in the winter with the blue sky, if we have a blue sky. And of course, if we get snow, that's always lovely too. But yeah, so check that out. Until I see you again. Perhaps next year, perhaps next month, perhaps tomorrow. Uh, all the same, have yourself a wonderful year. It's going to be nuts. So pace yourself and make sure you give yourself the time you need to decompress. And when it's too much to handle, you need to step away from it, because there's going to be a lot of stuff out there, and we cannot handle everything. And that's part of the wisdom, I think, that Pluto through Capricorn has taught you. You can only do what you can do. And as long as you do it well, you're good. All right, guys, take care. Much love. Namaste.